In this final presentation, we will be discussing financial literacy and retirement readiness. My motivation for this research topic stems from the fact that financial literacy courses are sometimes offered through secondary and post-secondary educational institutions but are often not required. Furthermore, many places of employment do not educate their staff on retirement plans and packages. And for example, it was recently found that at the high school in which I teach at, only 11% of employees had some type of retirement plan other than the already established 401k. Levels of financial literacy are low and declining. And low levels of financial literacy are associated with adverse financial outcomes, which leads to inadequate retirement savings, which of course can be detrimental to the economy. And with the decreasing amount of assistance available to the elderly population when talking about Medicare and Social Security, adequate investment during one's working career is more important now than it has ever been. This also brings up the issue of how there is even more now responsibility placed on individuals to plan for their retirement due to the fact that most, if not all, employers have moved from defined benefit plans to defined contribution plans. A little bit of background. Several countries across the world have explored the relationship between financial literacy and retirement readiness, and among these studies there is a general conclusion that exists that says and shows that many people are lacking basic financial skills and are not planning for retirement, and we'll see this in a little bit evident in the summary statistics. Also, this study will look at countries within the G7 with a focus on data compiled from the National Financial Capability Study, which was conducted in the United States. Summary statistics from the other countries, including Germany, Japan, Canada, and France, will act as supporting evidence. The data that we're looking at exclusively in the United States is a part of the National Financial Capability Study. It was conducted in 2015 and then published in 2016. As far as I know, there are no current published research articles pertaining to this particular study. The sample was quite large, however, the data that I'm going to be looking at is further categorized and is consisting of summary responses across the 51 states. The survey focused on participants' ability to make ends meet, plan ahead, manage financial products, financial knowledge, and decision making. In order to analyze distinct results of the survey, I will be using ordinary least squares regression. So the summary statistics that we will be looking at again are from the United States, Japan, Germany, Canada, and France. And although these are all different surveys, I do want to stress that the surveys distributed throughout these additional 4 countries do follow the Lusardi and Mitchell approach and consist of questions which are to assess one's level of financial literacy. Most research was inspired by Anna Maria Lusardi and Olivia Mitchell, and these questions which we are talking about are regarding interest, inflation, and risk, and that's what I'll be looking at in the supporting evidence of other countries, and including the United States. So here you can see these 3 questions, the interest question, the inflation question, and the risk question. These percentages represent the percent of respondents that answered correctly. So just looking here, if you can see the United States, Japan, and then France have at least one question where where only 40% or more of respondents answered correctly. It's a critically low number, and even more so if you look at Germany and France, although those numbers are a little bit higher, you still are floating around where 40% answered incorrectly when asked just these basic financial questions. And overall, if you look at these basic financial knowledge scores, they're not so far from each other. And the fact that the highest score was 67.85% overall on the all questions asked regarding financial literacy, and then in the United States as low as right around 50% answered correctly. So these scores should really be alarming as they are critically low to policymakers. Furthermore, talking about retirement planning, when we're talking about non-planners here, you can see that a significant amount, and even in some cases the majority of respondents are not planning for retirement. Again, alarming, critically low numbers that are really a concern in terms of the economy when it comes to post-career expenditures. And then maybe this does have something to do, which is what I'm hoping to show in this research, with financial education and, again, financial literacy. And the only two countries that I could find data for as far as financial education, the United States, only 21.3% of respondents claimed that they had, in fact, taken part in some type of financial education, and in Japan, 6.6%. But in most countries, it was found that many would like to be a part of and participate in some type of financial education. So in order to show the relationship between economic variables, financial literacy, and retirement planning, I have chosen 4 different dependent variables. These variables will be representative of retirement readiness. In one model, which will be the second model specifically, I'm going to look at those who said yes, we have planned for retirement, and they are those respondents who have not retired. Was not able to come up with a significant model. However, I did consider and attempt to find a model for the dependent variable of percent of retirement planners who are retired, but we will see why that might have been an issue. In the third model, I will use the dependent variable, which is the percent of respondents with any type of retirement account. That could be a 401k, 403b, Roth, and so forth. And then lastly, the first and fourth model, the dependent variable will be the percent of respondents with non-retirement account investments, so something other than a 401k. Here is a list of on the left you can see the independent variables and their form in the regression, and then their descriptions on the right. Every variable is in percent form except for correct 6. As you can see, this is the average number of correct answers across the 51 states individually. Here are the summary statistics for the United States for all the variables shown in the previous slide. You can see here that the standard deviations are all quite small, meaning that we are pretty central around the mean in terms of each independent and even dependent variable. Here we can see that dependent variable retired, and that there are only 38 states that had data for the specific variable. This might be why I could not find any significant factors in any model with a dependent variable of percent of retirement planners that were retired, because of those missing observations. Methodology. When looking at the equations, I went ahead and decided to use multivariate linear regression. I used 4 models total. The first model, you can see here, I use 5 independent variables. These are 5 distinct and different questions that are to assess one's level of financial literacy. We have the interest question, the inflation question, the risk question, the mortgage question, the bond price question. I decided to run regression with these on their own because I wanted to see the single significant individual effect of financial literacy and the different topics on retirement planning. And also, when included with other economic variables, their significance was not at or below the 10% level. Now for models 2, 3, and 4, I will use all 3 of those dependent variables, and overall the independent variables tend to stay about the same, give or take the elimination of a few due to some errors in the model. So for my hypotheses, first of all, I would like to show that financial literacy has a significant positive effect on overall retirement readiness. Secondly, one's willingness to take risk positively affects the likelihood they are to have investment accounts, retirement accounts, and plan for retirement. Thirdly, one's past financial education has a positive impact on the likelihood they are to have investment accounts, retirement accounts, and plan for retirement. And then likewise, I think post-secondary education has a positive impact on retirement readiness. And lastly, due to my profession as a high school math teacher, I would like to think that confidence in the level of one's mathematical ability has a positive effect on retirement planning. So let's go ahead and take a look at the model. This is model 1, where the dependent variable is the percent of respondents with investment accounts of non-retirement type. So we talked about this a little bit earlier. And as you can see here, I was able to find where all independent variables are significant other than the interest question. This could very well be due to the fact that the interest question was answered correctly most often. I believe it was around 79%. And in order to verify significance of this model and also models that we're going to see here in a moment, I use the VIF, Variance Inflation Factor Test, to check for multicollinearity. And in this case, in cases in the future, all values were under 5, indicating the independent variables were free of multicollinearity. Then I checked for heteroscedasticity using the Bruce-Pagan-Cook-Weisberg test. A value above the 10% level concluded that the model displayed constant variance, and I could not reject the null hypothesis. And then lastly, I used the F test and the according low p-value, which further indicated a significant model. So let's go ahead and interpret some of these coefficients you can see here. First of all, for the inflation question, with a 10% increase in the number of people who are knowledgeable of how inflation works, the number of people with investment accounts would increase by 4.9%. In regards to understanding a 15-year mortgage compared to a 30-year mortgage, a 10% increase in awareness would increase investment accounts by 8.4%. With a 10% increase in the number of people who understand the inverse relationship between bond prices and interest rates, investment accounts would be expected to increase by 7.1% with a 1% level of significance. And then lastly, for a 10% rise in respondents who can distinguish the difference in risk between a single company's stock and stock mutual funds, investment accounts could potentially increase by 3.2%. So you can see here the significance of these parameter estimates and their positive relationship with retirement readiness in the form of holding investment accounts further supports my hypothesis that financial literacy increases the likelihood of retirement planning. Now we're getting into more of the financial literacy along with the economic variables. So this second model, where the dependent variable is the percent of non-retired retirement planners. So this is saying, yes, I have planned for retirement. And we have a few variables here that were significant, and the significance of the model is backed again by the VIF test, the Bruce-Pagan-Cook-Weisberg test, and the F test and p-values. So in order to interpret this model, we'll start with the correct 6 variable. At a 10% level of significance, one additional correct answer regarding financial knowledge will increase the number of retirement planners by 5.8%. And then here, as stated in my hypothesis, in regards to risk personality, a 10% increase will boost the number of retirement planners by 3.1%. So again, the significant positive relationship between these explanatory variables in retirement planning further support my hypothesis that financial literacy and one's willingness to take risks has a positive and important impact on retirement planning. And this is very similar. The next variable, males, is very similar to other research conducted by other countries and also in the United States by Lusardi and Mitchell. Males are more likely to plan for retirement than females. For example, a 1% increase in the number of male respondents opposed to female respondents increases retirement planning by 1.35%. And then lastly, parents educating their children about managing finances positively impacts retirement planning. For a 10% increase in people who receive financial planning skills from the parents, retirement planning is expected to increase by 3.3%. So here you can see where financial education, even at a young age, does have a critical impact on retirement planning. And for the third model, we have again that correct 6. Now when you answer one more question correctly, we increase that likelihood to plan for retirement. Different than the other models, post-secondary education has a positive impact on retirement planning, and this is as hypothesized. For a 10% increase in the number of Americans with a bachelor's degree or higher, the number of retirement accounts increases by 4.6%. And then we have where males, where that positive impact is similar to the last model. And then lastly, if all variables are considered to be 0, retirement planning would decrease by 0.8%. And then we have our last model here, which again, we have the correct 6 variable being significant. However, the percent math and married variable have a negative impact on retirement accounts. This may have to do with the simple fact that people overestimate how good they are at math. I think that might have something to do with the negative impact it has on retirement planning. The variable might not be measured correctly. And then also, as far as a marital status having a negative factor in retirement planning, that could have something to do with the other marital statuses that I did not include due to multicollinearity, such as separated, living with partner. They might have alternate effects. And then you can see here that having a having a degree in bachelor's, as a bachelor's, master's, or doctorate does have a positive impact on retirement planning. And if all else zero, investment accounts decreases by 0.52%. And then also I'd like to add, unlike the other models, the age 25-64 was significant in regards to investment accounts. In this case, a 10% increase in the number of persons from 25 to 64 decreases investment accounts by 7.3%. So that was new in comparison to other models.